Did you know that Photoshop offers a way to preview print output on screen? In this lesson, we'll look at how to edit an image for a specific printer paper ink combination. Let's get started in our Chapter 10 folder and open the file titled Softproof. What we would like to do with this image is to preview how it will look when we print it. Now, in order to do that, we have to know a couple of things. We have to know the exact printer we're going to use and the paper that we're going to be loading into that printer. We also need to know the ink that's loaded in that printer. How do we find out those things? Well, Photoshop can gather all of that information from the printer profile. But first things first, and before we dig into printer profiles, let's duplicate this image. So we'll go up to the Image menu and select Duplicate. We can simply hit OK. Now we have two identical images on screen. Right now they're docked into a single tab window. What we need to be able to do is to view them side by side, or in this case top to bottom. So let's go up here to our application bar and click on the Arrange Documents icon, and let's choose this 2-up horizontal layout. So now we can see both of these images. I'm going to just reduce the size a bit here on the first image and again on the bottom image. So we're looking at each image at identical magnification, and we can see the full image in both of these windows. Now what we're going to do is activate this top image, and this is how the image looks on screen. All our edits are done, and we want to view how this is going to look once we print it. So with this top image selected, I'm going to go up to the View menu, choose Proof Setup, and select Custom. Now we have a bunch of options here. The most important one is the device to simulate. What kind of output device are we trying to softproof here? What we're going to do is click and scroll all the way down here to the bottom, and I've got a profile here made on an HP printer on bamboo paper, a paper from Hahnemühle called Bamboo. I'm going to select this. Now you can use any profile that you want for this training. If you would like to use this identical profile, I have put that inside your Chapter 10 folder. So you can simply grab that ICC profile and install it on Windows. You simply right-click on the file and say Install. If you're on a Mac, you would install this profile into the Library folder, inside the ColorSync folder, inside the Profiles folder. Now it's very important that once we have this profile selected here, that we turn on both of these display options. Clicking on Simulate Paper Color will also turn Simulate Black Ink on. We're going to leave the rendering intent here at relative and make sure that black point compensation is turned on. And we'll simply hit OK. Notice now the difference between the top image and the bottom image. The bottom images are on screen view. The top image shows how this image will look on that printer paper ink combination. So right now you can see we've got some issues here. The image is flat, dull, much more washed out. But the beauty of softproofing is that knowing ahead of time this is how the image will print, we can make some adjustments here to the image specifically for this print output. And here's how we're going to do it. Again, with our softproof layer turned on, and we know that this layer has softproofing on because we can see in the title bar we've got RGB, 8-bit, and the name of the printer profile that we're using to softproof. So we're going to make a couple of adjustment layers. The very first one we're going to make is a curves adjustment layer. We can select curves. We're going to be working on the composite RGB curve. And a couple of things to note here. Notice how these highlights here in the sneaker are duller than in our original image. And notice how these blacks in here are certainly weaker than our original image. And we're going to boost those two. So I'm going to click the On Image Adjustment tool and simply go over and click in this sneaker area, and I'm simply going to drag up to brighten those whites a bit. Now notice that the whites here are much closer in brightness to the whites down at the bottom. Of course, the rest of the image has brightened up as well, but we're going to fix that. What I want to do now is find a shadow area, not maybe the deepest, darkest shadows in this image, but something nearby in that range. Right about here looks pretty good, and I'll simply click and drag down. Now with the blacks, you don't want to go too far because at a certain point you're just not going to be able to match the depth and richness of on-screen blacks on a printing paper, particularly in this case when we're printing to a matte paper. But simply by bringing the blacks down just a couple of points, you can see that we're getting a closer result to our original image. I'll toggle the preview off and on. Here's how the image would look if we sent it to the printer with no manipulation. And here's how it looks with some contrast adjustments. So we're getting there, we're getting closer. Another issue here is notice how the blues in here and the jeans and the hat are not matching the hue of the blues down in here in our original. We're going to fix that with a hue saturation adjustment layer. So let's go back to our adjustments panel and we'll click hue saturation. This time what we want to do, again with the on image adjustment tool selected, I'm going to click here in this pant area and I want to adjust the hue. If I simply click and drag, I'm going to be changing saturation. So what I'm going to do is hold down the control key on Windows. If you're on a Mac, that would be the command key. Click, and that's going to activate our hue adjustment. Now I'm not going to go very far on this. I just want to go a couple of points, maybe up to 3 in the hue. That gets us a little bit closer. We could use a bit more saturation in these blues as well. So I'll simply click, and I'm going to drag to the right to increase saturation. And here I'm going to go a bit further than we did with hue. Somewhere right about 18 looks pretty good. Now another area where there's a color mismatch is in these reds and orange colors down here. They're not exactly matching the hue of our original image. So with the on image adjustment tool selected, I'm simply going to click over here, holding down the control key on Windows. That would be the command key on a Mac because I want to adjust hue for this color range. And I'm simply going to click and just move it over a couple of points here. Right about there at 3 gives a much better result. And now let's take a look at what we've done. If I go in the layers panel and just alt click on the visibility icon of the background layer, that would be an option click if you're on a Mac, you can see there's our image with no adjustments. It'll be flat, dull, not a lot of contrast. But if I alt click on the visibility icon, again on a Mac, that would be an option click, you can see what we get by making some adjustments with our soft proofing turned on. The main idea behind soft proofing is that if we can preview ahead of time and find out that the printer is going to reduce the saturation of the image and lower the contrast, we can edit the image to compensate for that. In essence, we'll be adding more contrast to the image and oversaturating the image so that by the time it comes out of the printer, the contrast and saturation will be just where we want them. I'm going to turn the soft proof off on this top layer just to demonstrate what I mean. We can turn this off by going up to the View menu and selecting Proof Colors, or we can simply use the shortcut of Control Y on Windows. That would be Command Y on a Mac. So if I press Command Y here, you can see that I must send this type of file to the printer to get this result. The printer paper ink combination is going to dull up that image a bit, so I have to send an image that is purposefully over adjusted in terms of contrast and saturation. So again, if we want this result coming out of the printer, that's the file that we have to send. We've covered a vast terrain of Photoshop skills, from setting user preferences to manipulating 3D objects. The advanced techniques I've shown you will allow you to work smarter and faster with professional results. Our time here is finished, but be sure to apply the techniques we've learned to your own images. Whether you're creating personal work or producing images for clients, there's no limit to what you and Photoshop can do. If you'd like to learn more about me or my work, please visit diallophotography.com. And once you've mastered this advanced training series, be sure to visit TotalTraining.com for more trainings. On behalf of the entire team here at Total Training, I'm Amadou Diallo. It's been a pleasure working with you, and here's to continued discoveries in Photoshop CS5.